Israel is facing an annual shortage of 13,000 engineers and software developers. How can we train more people to fill these critical roles? And what skills do they need to ensure they not only succeed, but also drive Israel's economy forward? To explore these questions, we're joined by Professor Eugene Kandel, the Emil Spire Professor of Economics and Finance at the Hebrew University. He is a member of the university's Center for the Study of Rationality, a research fellow at the Center for Economic Policy and Research in London, and a fellow of the European Corporate Governance Institute. He is also the chairman of the Tel Aviv Stock Exchange. Professor Kandel served as the head of the National Economic Council and economic advisor to the Prime Minister, playing a key role in shaping Israel's economic policy. From 2015 to 2021, he was the CEO of Startup Nation Central, a nonprofit dedicated to strengthening Israel's innovation ecosystem and connecting global leaders to Israeli technology solutions. Beyond his leadership in academia and policy, he has advised governments, corporations, and organizations worldwide and served as on the Israeli Antitrust Court. Welcome, Professor Kandel.
Hi, nice to be here.
Now, Professor, the success of Israel's high-tech sector depends heavily on a steady supply of highly skilled engineers and technologists. Are we producing enough STEM graduates to meet industry demand? And what should we be doing to close any gaps?
Well, actually, we produce a lot of STEM graduates. There were quite several initiatives that increased that, both at the end of the 1990s and then in the 2014-15. The problem is that with the advance of technology and AI, it is no longer the question of numbers, but the quality, which is most important, and of course, the number of quality candidates. Because in the past, we said, well, we need programmers, let's open some colleges, let's produce mass production of STEM. And it was okay. And then we ran out again, and then we started boot camps. And then it was potentially okay as well. But the problem is that looking forward, the intermediate STEM skills would be rather rapidly replaced by AI. So we can no longer just say, well, let's take a person and get them through 6 months course and we'll be okay for the rest of their lives. That's not going to happen. So we need to think about much more creative ideas.
And speaking of that, many industry leaders are actually arguing that traditional degrees are not keeping pace with the needs of today's workforce. How can competency-based education and alternative training models help Israel's high-tech sector remain competitive?
Well, it's not just the degrees; it's the people that are coming out of education system, then going to high education, and then the high education sort of forms, finishes their education. So the academy, if you look at the academy, it creates three products. It creates ideas through research, it trains future researchers, and it trains employees for technological companies. Okay, or non-technological, technological employees for technological companies and non-technological companies. The interesting thing is that the research and the training of future research should not be driven by the industry current needs. That's not going to be good. But in training employees, we basically train the future researchers and training future employees in many cases in the same program. And that is problematic because in training the employees of technology companies, there's got to be much closer relationship between the industry and the academy than there currently is. And this needs to be improved.
Global tech companies are increasingly poaching Israeli talent or encouraging them to work abroad. How can Israel retain its best engineers and entrepreneurs?
Well, we've been actually making this relatively unpopular statement for a while now, probably close to a decade. And it was fun watching all these Israeli companies acquired by foreign corporations and turned into R&D centers. What that meant is not only that the tech people are moving into international companies, but also that a lot of jobs are disappearing that are supporting like business functions, etc., because all of them are being siphoned and shipped to overseas. So while large R&D, large technological companies played a very important role and continue to play a very important role in the development of Israeli ecosystem, it's the question of how many is too many. And when we moved from 50 R&D centers in Israel in 2000 to over 400 in 2017-18, somewhere in the middle we crossed that line. And so because in some sense, it's similar to these large corporates taking oxygen out of the startup ecosystem because the startups can't compete. And so, and the value that accrues to Israeli economy is therefore diminished. So the government has to act on that, but it has to be very, very smart and careful so it doesn't throw the baby with the water, because we do need these companies here. We do need many of them. We just don't need that many.
Now, you yourself have worked extensively in both academia and the private sector. How can we better align academic research, university curricula, and industry needs to ensure the graduates are more job ready?
I'll tell you a story. When I was the CEO of Startup Nation Central, which is an NGO focused on promoting technological innovation, Israeli technological innovation in the world, we started on a journey of trying to take the populations that are not reaching the core tech, like women from the Haredi sector, from the ultra-Orthodox sector, and Arab graduates. These were people who were graduating computer sciences, some of them in top universities, some of them in colleges, and they were basically unemployed. They would be sending hundreds of resumes and not getting anything. And so we started a program which was called Excellent Team. And this program was taking these graduates, we were screening with them, we were screening them, identifying very good candidates, and running a program for 4 months. It was not a boot camp. It was teaching them how to be a developer in a tech company. And the reason we were able to do that is because we started the whole process with the companies. Again, we went with the companies and they helped us choose the right candidates, to develop conditions or criteria for choosing them. They helped us build curriculum. They helped us build the soft skills of these graduates. And so within 4 months, we had an amazing placement record. So which shows that if you introduce all of those things within the academia, rather than after the graduation, you can get much, much better results, because we did it with the most difficult populations that the tech world was not familiar with. And we got them into the top positions in a variety of companies.
Now, I do know that other countries are really aggressively investing in tech and innovation and the workforce development. What policy recommendations would you make to ensure that Israel stays ahead in the global high-tech race today?
Well, AI is actually, from the point of view of employees, the AI is pretty scary, because it basically replaces a lot of intermediate skills, from skills of acquiring information, processing information, deriving results, etc., but also skills in tech. Today AI could write a marketing report. AI could write a program. It's no longer in its infancy, but it's still not there. But it's advancing in giant steps. And usually these steps are, it's sort of a plateau, and then there's a giant step, and then again plateau. So we have to be ready for the fact that a lot of people may become redundant. And so you need to train employable people. That's people who have comparative advantage over employable people in other countries. Because imagine if AI generates structural unemployment, there will be a huge fight between countries on who is getting the employable people and who's getting the unemployable people. Okay, that will drive the country's economies. And so we have to change our attitude, because currently we don't even think about it in our education system and academic training. We need to really think hard what kind of person has to emerge after high school and after the college degree in order to be within the employable ranks of the world employees and not in the ranks of the redundant.
Now, I do think it's important to speak about the impact of the war. Do you believe Israel's high-tech sector will fully recover or even flourish after the war? How do you think the large number of young people who served in the reserves will influence the type of innovation Israel produces in the coming years?
Well, I believe that Israeli innovation ecosystem will flourish not because of the war or after the war, but if we derive the right policies to help it flourish. Because currently, the competition for the ecosystems is very, very strong around the world. And the competitors are not the companies. The competitors for the development of ecosystems are the governments, because it is the government that can provide the environment in which the innovation ecosystem can flourish and will flourish, and not instead of moving to another location. Okay, and unfortunately, Israeli government is not yet to understand fully that it is in a cutthroat competition. It has this feeling that since we have this ecosystem, it will always be here. And so anytime you talk to sort of broader government, I'm not talking specifically like Innovation Authority or something, those people are focused on this every day, but the broader government is not yet there in even an understanding that there is a very, very tough competition that it's in. So the war itself, I don't think that reservists particularly will influence innovation, apart from one type. The war itself will definitely affect innovation defense tech, and we're already seeing that. I mean, it's being modified and adopted and developed as we speak. But the AI part, anything that has to do with AI, will have to have government investments, and quite significant ones in infrastructure. And I hope that dealing with the economics of war will not prevent such investment.
Now, we happen to be speaking today very soon after an acquisition of $32 billion acquisition, in fact, of Wiz by Google. It was a historic moment for Israel's tech sector. What does this milestone signal about the strength of Israeli innovation?
Well, first of all, as we say, Mazel Tov. It's a great achievement and shows that Israeli ingenuity continues and follows the route of the tradition of Mobileye and Mellanox, which are the companies that grew in Israel and that were acquired by technological giants, and those turned them into even bigger companies. But it also shows a darker side, which is that Israel is not currently able to build standalone giant companies. So that needs to be, like following my previous comment about the government strategy and competition, we have to think about it. What kind of conditions, and these conditions include labor laws, securities laws, corporate laws, tax laws, etc., that would make it possible for Israel to grow huge companies, just like Finland, which is a small country, grew Nokia at some point. Okay, we don't seem to be able to grow a giant company. There are pluses to that, there is minuses to that, but we at least have to be able to do that. As an event, this is not a memento. This is just an isolated event, and there will be others, but we can't look at them as, wow, here we have the white knight the shining armor on a white horse, that is going to solve the problems, and this is, we don't need to do anything. The tax authority, who was very unhappy about 8 months ago when we turned down $23 billion offer, I'm sure that today they're much happier.